Welcome to the Iran This Week podcast with Art Keller for the week ending April 29th, 2011. Let's start with a review of Iran in the news. On 22 April, the Associated Press reported that the commander of Iran's Revolutionary Guard warned Friday that his forces are expanding capabilities to retaliate against possible enemy attacks from outside the Gulf, further suggesting that Tehran seeks to widen its military reach. The comments by General Mohammad Ali Jafari appear part of a broader strategy by Iran to project its power beyond the Gulf and its neighbors. The range of Iranian missiles has steadily grown in recent years to encompass Israel and parts of Europe, and 2 Iranian warships entered the Mediterranean in February for the first time since the 1979 Islamic Revolution. Given that the responsibility of countering enemy threats in faraway regions has been delegated to the Guard, we are increasing capabilities to reach and hit the enemy in the same way the enemy stands in remote regions outside the Persian Gulf, Jafari told the Fars news agency. Jafari didn't directly mention the United States, but his comments were a clear reference to the American forces in the region that include the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet in Bahrain. Iran's Revolutionary Guard is the nation's most advanced fighting force and also has broad influence over nearly every strategic sector, including the nuclear program and oil industry. Jafari, however, claimed Iran's enemies are no longer in a position to attack. The time of threatening Iran militarily has passed. The deterrent is the progress of our capabilities, including missile power, he said. Iran put the Revolutionary Guard in charge of defending the country's territorial waters in the Gulf in 2008. The decision was made based on assumptions that threats against Iran are mostly sea or air-based. Iranian military officials have said in the past that the country has set aside 100 military vessels to confront each warship from the U.S. or any other foreign power. On 23 April, the Associated Press reported a nervous leadership in Iran has imposed a media blockout on Bashar Assad's struggle against a swelling Syrian uprising. Tehran faces the unsettling prospect of losing its most stalwart ally in the region. The Islamic Republic managed to choke off its homegrown Green Revolution after the disputed June 2009 presidential election, but now it is being dragged into uprisings sweeping across the Middle East and stirring unrest in Syria and unfriendly neighbor Bahrain. On the deadliest day of the Syrian rebellion Friday, when more than 100 people were killed by authorities, President Barack Obama accused Assad of seeking Iranian help to use the same brutal tactics unleashed against demonstrators almost 2 years ago. Should Assad's regime fall, it could rob Iran of a loyal Arab partner in a region profoundly realigned by uprisings demanding more freedom and democracy. Iran may still have other options in the region, though. It has ties with Iraq's Shiite-led government, growing bonds with Turkey, and is making overtures to post-revolutionary Egypt. But the uprisings have also sharply boosted hostility toward Iran from the wealthy and increasingly influential Gulf Arab states that believe Tehran is encouraging Shiite protesters in Bahrain and elsewhere. Assessing Iran's strategy on Syria is difficult. The ruling clerics have banned domestic media from mentioning the revolt. There have been no open debates in Iran's parliament, and leaders, including outspoken President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, have been extremely cautious in their remarks on Syria. State-run English-language Press TV offers straightforward coverage with comment sections that include a mix of both pro-Assad messages and calls for his regime to go. Iran's Arabic-language Al-Alam television on Saturday quoted the foreign ministry spokesman Ramin Mehmanparast as rejecting Obama's claim of Iranian aid to Assad in his time of crisis. In a speech Saturday, Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei praised the Islamic awakening around the region, a reference to Iran's frequent claims that the rebellion draw inspiration from Iran's 1979 Islamic Revolution. He did not mention Syria, but instead pointed to other uprisings in Libya, Yemen, and Bahrain. On 24 April, Reuters reported that Iraq's Ministry of Electricity and Iranian power development firm Sunir inaugurated a $150 million, 320-megawatt power plant in Baghdad on Sunday that should boost Iraq's feeble electricity supply. The plant, constructed on 25 acres in the Sadr city slum in northeastern Baghdad, has 2 160-megawatt turbines, one of which was connected to the national grid on Sunday. The other was scheduled to be hooked up next month. No power station of this size has been installed in Baghdad in years, Electricity Minister spokesman Musab al-Mudaris said. Intermittent power is one of Iraqis' main complaints. 8 years after the fall of Saddam Hussein, the grid still only supplies a few hours of power a day. Protesters at recent demonstrations frequently complained about the power supply. Iraq needs more than 15,000 megawatts to meet peak summer demand. Its supply this summer is projected to be just 7,000 megawatts, the electricity minister said last month. Sunir Vice President Amir Anvari said the company plans to install 2 more gas units in a second phase of the plant and should sign a contract for the project in about a month. The new turbines would bring total capacity of the plant to 640 megawatts. Sunir is in negotiations with the ministry to install a natural gas pipeline between Iran and Iraq to feed the Sadr City power station and another in northern Baghdad, Anvari said. On 25 April, senior officials from Iran, Oman, Qatar, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan have signed an agreement to create an international transportation corridor that will serve a revamped link between energy-rich Central Asia and Persian Gulf ports. Uzbek Foreign Minister Elyor Ganiyev said the route will be created from existing railroads running from Uzbekistan through Turkmenistan and further south to seaports in Iran. Foreign ministers from the 5 nations met Monday in the Turkmen capital, Ashgabat. The planned route would substantially ease trade exchanges between Persian Gulf nations and Central Asia, as well as China and Russia further north. Iran, in particular, hopes to export its oil to Central Asia. On 25 April, AFP reported Iran and Iraq have signed an accord to extradite convicts and criminals wanted by the 2 neighbors. Justice Minister Morteza Bakhtiari and his visiting Iraqi counterpart Hassan al-Shamari signed the agreement late on Sunday, the Aftab-e-Yazd newspaper said. According to state television's website, the agreement will allow the repatriation of convicts and criminals, including those who have fled their country, to stand trial and await implementation of their sentence. The accord follows a deadly raid on April 8th by Iraqi security forces on Camp Ashraf, set up in the 1980s, and which houses about 3,500 members of Iran's main armed opposition group, the People's Mujahideen of Iran, also known as the Mujahideen-e-Khalq. The raid inside Iraq near the border with Iran killed 34 members of the group, which fought alongside Iraqi forces against the Islamic Republic in the 1980 to 1988 Iran-Iraq War. The group is on the U.S. government's terrorist list. Iran's judiciary chief, Ayatollah Sadiq Larijani, who oversaw the signing of the agreement, lauded the Iraqi government's measures against the Mujahideen, the television website said. But Larijani did not specify if Iran would use the agreement to ask for the extradition of Mujahideen members. According to Iran's official IRNA news agency, Shamari said Baghdad was determined to expel the group from the camp. On April 11th, Iraq announced the exile group should leave the country by the end of the year. Camp Ashraf has become a mounting problem for Iraqi authorities since U.S. forces handed security for the camp over in 2009, amid pressure from Tehran to hand over the members of the militant group. The left-wing Islamist group was founded in 1965 to oppose the Shah of Iran, but it fell out with the clerical regime in Tehran that took power in the 1979 Islamic Revolution. On 25 April, the New York Times reported that Iran has discovered a new hostile computer virus designed to damage government systems, an Iranian official who heads a cyber defense agency said in comments reported Monday. The official, Gholam Reza Jalili, said the STARS virus had infiltrated government systems but was being decoded. Fortunately, our scientists have successfully identified the STARS virus, which has now been sent to laboratories, said Mr. Jalili, a senior Revolutionary Guard commander. He said no final conclusions had yet been reached about the virus's aim. In its initial state, it mimics a regular executable file. In recent days, Mr. Jalili admitted that the powerful Stuxnet virus discovered last year did indeed infect computer systems related to the country's nuclear program, but said that it was discovered before causing serious damage. Mr. Jalili said the threat from Stuxnet had not yet been completely dispelled and cautioned that further attacks were anticipated. The nation should ready itself for the next virus since it is possible that new viruses will be considerably more dangerous than the first. On 26 April, AFP reported Bahrain has declared the second secretary in the Iranian embassy persona non grata and ordered him to leave within 72 hours due to his alleged links with a Kuwait spy ring. The report named the official as Hujatullah Rahmani and said Iran's charge d'affaires in Bahrain was summoned on Monday to the foreign ministry where the decision had been conveyed to him. Earlier this month, Iranian state television said 3 of Tehran's diplomats and an embassy employee were expelled from Kuwait for alleged links to a spy ring working for Tehran, reportedly ever since the invasion of Iraq. Kuwait's foreign minister later charged that the diplomats had proven links to a suspected spy ring. 3 members of which a Kuwaiti court condemned to death on March 29th. On the 26th of April, the New York Times reported that 2 American citizens who have spent 19 months in detention in Iran, accused of espionage and illegal entry, will appear in court for a 3rd time in May, according to their lawyer. Joshua Fatal and Shane M. Bauer, both aged 28, will attend a court session on May 11th, their lawyer, Masood Shafai, said on Tuesday. On 2 previous occasions, judges have delayed a verdict in the case, citing the absence of a 3rd American, Sarah Shord, who was released on bail last September for medical reasons and returned to the United States. The 3 were arrested near the border with Iraqi Kurdistan in June 2009. While Ms. Shord has been summoned in a letter from Iran's foreign ministry, it is unlikely that she will return to face trial in May. When there are several accused persons, a judge cannot postpone the case just because one of them is not present. The judge must issue separate verdicts for Shane and Joss, Mr. Shafai said in a telephone interview. Sarah's verdict can be issued in absentia or her case alone can be delayed. Mr. Fatal and Mr. Bauer have been held in Tehran's notorious Evin prison for the past 19 months, a period significantly longer than the 1-year minimum sentence for the crimes they are accused of committing. Mr. Shafai says he has not been allowed to meet with his clients before their previous court appearances, despite assurances from the presiding judge that he would be able to. All 3 Americans have denied that they knowingly entered Iranian territory or that they were involved in espionage. The 2 previous hearings, in November 2010 and in February, were held behind closed doors. While Iranian law states that court sessions in such cases should be held publicly, judges are able to make exceptions in sensitive cases. Ms. Shord, in an interview in November, said that she, Mr. Bauer, her fiancé, and their friend, Mr. Fatal, were hiking on an unmarked dirt road and inadvertently crossed into Iran when a guard gestured to them. He pointed to the ground and said Iran, and pointed to the trail that we had been on before he waved to us and said Iraq, said Mrs. Shord, who lives in Oakland, California. We did not actually enter Iran until he gestured to us. We were confused and worried and wanted to go back. On 26 April, the Associated Press reported Iran's government has raised bread prices up to 25%, the 2nd hike in 4 months, as authorities are trying to cut subsidies to ease pressure on the economy straining under international sanctions. The IRNA news agency quoted Deputy Governor of Tehran Province, Nematullah Torki, as saying the new price will be effective as of Tuesday. A loaf of the popular sangak bread has gone up from 4,000 rials, about 36 cents, to 5,000 rials, about 45 cents. Bread prices first tripled after the subsidy cuts came into effect in December as President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad moved to reduce the massive drain on the state budget from subsidies on foodstuffs and energy. Every Iranian receives the equivalent of about $45 per month to compensate for the subsidy cuts. That concludes the news roundup. Please send any feedback on the above stories to Iran This Week at artkeller.com. Now on to questions and comments from the desk of Art Keller. This week, my guest is Nader Hashemi, currently a professor of political science at the Josef Korbel School of International Studies and editor of a collection of essays on Iran's Green Movement called The People Reloaded, the Green Movement and the Struggle for Iran's Future. He is also the author of the book Islam, Secularism, and Liberal Democracy. Without further ado, here's my discussion with Dr. Hashemi. Let's start off talking a little bit about the Green Movement. What happens to the Green Movement if Mr. Karoubi and Mr. Mousavi remain under house arrest?
Well, it poses some immediate challenges because they are the unofficial leaders of the Green Movement, but they were anticipating their house arrest and their incarceration. So what they did before their effective imprisonment at the end of February of this year was that they appointed several representatives, both within Iran and outside, to coordinate and to respond and represent sort of Green Movement strategy and policy.